Jenkins, and I will be your moderator for this Q&A of Fast Color, written and directed by the awesome, the fabulous Julia Hart. Please give a warm welcome to writer director Julia Hart.
So first I'll bring out my co-writer and producer, Jordan Horowitz. And then the fabulous and amazing Saniyya, Sidney. And last but certainly not least, the incomparable Gugu Mbatha-Raw.
So I'm going to ask a few questions and then I'll turn it over to this fabulously gorgeous audience, but I got questions, so I'm going to go right in. So I put this movie on earlier in the week and I didn't read anything about it, I had no idea what to expect, and I was not expecting this myth-making origin story of black super women powers and all this awesomeness. So please tell me where this came from and where the root of the story came from, you guys.
So, I actually didn't decide that I could direct a movie until I became a mother. I was a screenwriter, and I watched someone else direct a script I wrote, and, oh, sorry.
There's a voice coming behind the screen.
And it was watching this other person direct my story, a story about women. It was not a woman who directed it. And I was like, shame on you, Julia, for not bringing this story to the finish line yourself, so I promised myself that I wouldn't do that again. And so becoming a mother it was the most powerful I'd ever felt, and so it made me feel like I could direct, and that then made me, aware of the fact that all mothers are superheroes. And I thought I'd never seen a movie about a superhero who was or a mother who was literally a superhero, and so that was kind of like the seed of the idea, and then we, let it grow from there.
And then we watched Beyond the Lights when we were, when we were putting this movie together, we were writing it, and we were like, who is this greatest actress of our generation? We must have her for this movie. And so, I mean, you can sort of take it from there. We went out for her.
First and only person we wanted for the part, and she said yes. So we the first, yeah. Oh yeah, wow. Yeah. So thanks for doing the movie.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, well, when I first read the script, I remember reading it sort of straight through in about 90 minutes and kind of calling my agents and being like, yes, I want to meet Julia. This is so amazing, and it's so unique and emotional, and I just fell in love with Ruth, and the writing and the world was just so refreshing. So yeah, it's such an honor to be a part of it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I imagine, most movies, especially with a story this dense, the generations that the power sort of passed through, was it always going to be these 3 generations of women, or when you first began the project, was it just about this one woman who just had everything and just all these robust powers? Like, where did you guys arrive at creating this thing with the mom and the daughter?
Well, and I should say, she really wanted to be here, and she couldn't because she's shooting, but Lorraine Toussaint should be on the stage with us. She was also first dream. Once we cast Gugu, we were like, God, it would be amazing if Lorraine Toussaint played her mom, and then she also said yes. It was awesome. It's awesome when that happens. But anyway, to answer your actual question. It was definitely multi-generational. It kind of started with this idea of this broken superhero, female superhero on the run, and that the place that she would restore her powers would be home. And so we loved the idea of that being from both her mother and the past, and her daughter and the future.
I mean, I remember when we were first starting to talk about it, and we're like, okay, this is sort of the arena we want to play in. The first image, because that tends to be how we start to find our way into scripts, like someone has sort of like an image, It's just like, okay, this is definitely a thing we want in the movie, and it was that cigarette moment with Lorraine. That's the first thing I can remember that was like a specific thing that Juliet kind of came to me and was like, we need to have this moment when she arrives in this is sort of the moment of her coming home. So it was always sort of that interplay of mothers and daughters, parents and children. Yeah.
And Gugu, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer, not you, Julia. the thing with your wrists, was that on the page? Was something you guys came out of the workshopping? It's a very dark image, the way your wrists are always wrapped. I mean, you immediately this character's been through a lot of pain and suffering. Was that on the page? Was that something that you guys riffed out in building the character? And how did it feel to walk on set every day with these scars?
Yeah, I think it was always on the page. I think we played around with the idea that when Ruth is having the seizures, that she needs to be anchored to something, and that was, where these scars had come from. But obviously, just the image of wrapped wrists brings up so much, connotations of self-harm and, other things as well. So I think I read it on the page and I always understood it as something, literal, but then actually when you see the image, it sort of takes you to a much darker place, actually.
Yeah, for me, watching the film, it was a very interesting visual concept because, I don't know about you guys, I wasn't in the room when you watched it, I watched it by myself, but it's a very hopeful film in a certain way. And yet it's some of the imagery that you were forced to encounter is very dark on the surface. So I think with all you guys, and I want to get to you next, my dear, there's this thing radiating from within that everyone in the film is trying to work it out in a certain way, despite all these secrets that are between them. So I think this is your first time seeing the film, is it not?
Yes, it is.
How do you feel?
I cried like a baby. And I usually don't cry easily, so I was like, oh my god. I was hiding my face because I was like, oh, this is so much, I love it so much.
Well, and it's cool because you guys are ahead of the audience in a certain way, because there's going to be this reveal of the relationship between these two characters. I was watching it and I was like, I think there's something there. And it was did you guys rehearse together? Were you like mimicking certain things? Because it's kind of nice. It's almost like there's this Rocky and Apollo Creed kind of relationship, and Rocky 3, this Rocky and Apollo Creed kind of relationship going on where it's like, oh, I'm gonna do the bolt better than she did, And there's this nice sort of like mimicry that's going on in this really beautiful and subtle way. So talk about working with Gugu and building the character.
Of course, it's always awesome.
Of course.
Gugu, of course. I mean, she's magical. I mean, listen to her name, Gugu too.
Well, I always remember the first time I met you and you said your name means...
radiant and brilliant.
And I said, oh, true. And I said, oh, my name means our pride. And I just knew that we were kind of going to get along.
Yeah, it was like, and then we just had like random conversations, like, how's your day? Oh, it's good. And they would like connect and talk about other things and just go off. And we're just having an awesome conversation. It's so cool. I love her so much.
And Julia and Jordan, again, there's this idea of myth making, myth building, create origin myths and all these things. And the story, how much research did you guys do in deciding whether it's going to be set, these generations of black women? It's kind of crazy. I sat down to watch this film this week knowing nothing about it, and I was like, hey, here's a superhero movie that actually is about some actual like family like connection and stuff. I wonder could that work? I mean, $1.5 billion later, it works there. It also works here.
Thank you, Barry.
I'm projecting. So tell me about, again, going back to the root of sitting down and deciding to tell this story and just coming up with the origin of it.
It's funny because there's like superhero movies before Black Panther and after Black Panther. So I'm going to refer to the superhero movies before Black Panther. They're mostly about white men destroying things in order to save them. And lots of like big exploding cities and crumbling cities. And when we were thinking about this idea of the mom as the superhero, and the female superhero, we were thinking that her power should be creation. That female power is about creation. And so, and I think also something that is very female is this idea of this, the book, I think, is a good example of it. This idea of this thing that these women, in spite of everything they've been through, preserved generation after generation, the history of their family that probably started out as an oral history that then got written down and passed along. And this idea that, a lot of us are very broken and the world is very broken right now. And if we just look to history and the past, there's so much to learn. And so it was always going to, as I said earlier, it was always going to be about this whole history of all of these women before them in order to understand their own power.
And I'm going to turn it over to the audience in 1 second. I just want to ask about just a little bit, because this reminded me of my family in a certain way, that people are so close together physically in proximity, yet there are these secrets that somehow persist through generations. And you make a movie about the moment when the secrets are revealed. That's why we come into their lives at the time that we do in the story. But tell me about also just this idea of the secrets, even amongst these people who are living so close to one another. Is there something mirrored off y'all's lives, or y'all's families, or?
No. We're married.
Yeah, no, we're married.
Oh, I guess I should have revealed that. Yes.
I think everybody knew that, yeah.
I just assumed.
Do you have any secrets that you want to?
Thanks, Perry.
No, but
I just assumed people see the three of us side by side, and they kind of know what they're
Yeah.
well, something I want to respond to that in terms of something you said earlier about the dark images of the movie, and the movie starting very dark and then moving into this more sort of hopeful image of the possibilities of the future. And I think a lot about, and this idea of family, the people that you love and would do anything for, or you've broken each other's hearts and you've fallen apart, and hopefully you find a way to come back together. That I look at what we're going through right now, and that, especially in our industry, there's so much pain being talked about right now, but so much good is coming out of that. And so I think ultimately that was something that we were really interested in exploring, because family can cause the most pain and the most hope and love, and I think that that's revealed through the revelation of her past and all of the secrets that they have to unwind.
I mean, just again, being married, we got married very young, and we kind of grew up together, and we sort of had to, we had to grow up together. And kind of growing up is about sort of laying things on the table and saying, this is who I am, and this is who you are, and let's be real about who we are as these people. And that's a very vulnerable thing to do, but ultimately we have found a lot of power out of that conversation.
Well, and it's like Gugu has said of Ruth, that she's the main thing she's running from. Sure, there are these government baddies, but the real thing she's running from is herself. And that,
secrets of inside ourselves. Yeah.
I sort of found it fascinating that sort of the story really sort of deepens, where a lot of stories would end where the hero comes home and the end, and it's actually, sometimes the harder things to confront in our lives are the intimate family relationships. You can sort of be saving the world or having a fabulous career, but actually confronting your family childhood demons is, something a lot of people put off. So I liked the fact that the movie sort of started there and went on from there.
Yeah, they took you right back to all your demons and had you face them. Any questions from the audience? Yes, there's a question lined up and ready to go.
Hi. Oh yeah, I'm ready to go. So I just need to say, first of all, that as a Black woman, watching this film was incredible, and I'm really happy that films like this exist. So thank you. This is what lifting up people as somebody in a position of power looks like, and I really appreciate that. But to get to the question, I wanted to know, sort of tangentially related to the comment, if and how sort of the history of Black women, especially in the context of America, given where this film takes place, and the commodification of Black bodies and the fact that they're running away from people who want to kind of consume and dissect them, if and how all of that has played into and influenced the story.
It's It's a great question, and thank you for what you said as well. Like, it didn't start out as that, and you know, it started out as the story about female empowerment and just sort of like women of all colors being commodified and being subjugated and being oppressed by men, and then in casting Gugu and then in casting Saniyya and Lorraine and her family, it became about something much bigger than me, which is about women of color. And so, and exactly what you said, you know, like I felt privileged to watch Lorraine stand in front of those men, and she didn't literally disintegrate their guns, but it kind of felt like she did. And that, as a black woman standing in front of all of those men, like it's not lost on me what a powerful image that is. And so it was a privilege for me as a white woman to kind of step back and allow these incredible actresses to tell their story through a story that I had, you know, that we had started, that, as I said, became much bigger than us.
Thank you.
So, I can't think of a bigger power than the ability to disassemble and reassemble matter. Like, that's kind of huge. And I was wondering, if my family and I had the ability to disassemble and reassemble matter, why would I want to listen to people who can't do that?
It starts out as a self-protection thing, like especially as a mother too. Your children have this extraordinary ability that you know is both a blessing and a curse, and all you want to do is protect them. And the state of the world being what it was, and Ruth's position thrusting her daughter and her mother into that world in spite of her mother's, you know, best efforts to keep them all safe. I think it was her moment of just being like, I'm done hiding, I'm done letting your trying to own me have power over me. And so I don't necessarily know that it's her listening to them, it's kind of her telling them what's gonna happen. And she knows that they can save the world, and she thinks the world is worth saving at the end of the day, so.
Right.
If this were Twitter, you would have gotten a much different answer. I would have cut right.
Super nice.
No, you were super nice about it. Last question right here.
On Twitter, maybe you're not, but I am.
Hi, I thought the movie was really beautiful in its writing and its imagery, and I just wanted to ask, a lot of mainstream superhero movies are like about people with super strength and super speed, but this movie was about kind of the beauty in their powers, and I think it was really unique how their powers were being able to take things apart and just create things like out of thin air with the matter that was in the universe. And I wanted to like ask what kind of made you come to that being their superpower that was kind of passed down through their family.
I mean, I can. Well, as I say, you know, it's interesting. Like, sometimes it's just like that cigarette image. If we're taking it apart, like there was. This isn't really going to answer your question, but it maybe will. We really wanted to tell a story about women with extraordinary powers, but like unpacking the word like extraordinary, like the ordinariness of like the simple things that they sort of took apart and put back together was really important to the sort of texture of the story. Again, as I said, I don't think this answers your question, because it just kind of, we just kind of started riffing on that as like a sort of simple, like it came out of saying, what if these powers, instead of destructive, were something sort of a lot more delicate and feminine and beautiful. And then in sort of pulling that thread, it kind of led to, it kind of opened up this story, obviously, you know, sort of following it. It's not the best answer, but that's sort of an answer.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so there's another film coming in right behind us, so unfortunately that has to be the last question.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. This is